Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everybody. All right. First thing is our consent agenda. Routine stuff. There's no questions on that. Somebody make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Someone a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
I oppose. Motion carried. Community comment. Anybody from community? Yes, they left. Carlson SV 2025 audit review. You're up.
You have some things to hand out for council.
Thank you, John. Goes for the most absent.
All right, well, if you don't know me, my name is Paul. I work for Carlson SV. I'm a senior audit manager with the firm, formerly Burkhart & Burkhart, for those of you that have been here long enough. So I want to thank the opportunity to come and present the 2025 audit results to the council. I do have a PowerPoint presentation slide in front of you guys, so we're going to go over this and talk about some different responsibilities that the city has and we have as your audit firm. Go over some results of those audit procedures that we've performed. And then we're just going to go over some brief financial highlights for the city. Kind of looking back at what's happened the last several years, look at what's happening right now, and then hopefully project that into the future. So we're going to start on the first slide here, go over some responsibilities for financial reporting. Management responsibilities, and that's you folks up here in the front, have various financial responsibilities. Basically what we're looking at here is you're responsible for all of the things financial in the audit report. Including all the policies that dictate all those numbers and what goes on here to see that is your guys' responsibilities. We have some responsibilities as well as your audit firm. We issue 3 different audit opinions over your financial statements. The first one deals with just a basic financial opinion using, some of those are generally accepted auditing standards. And given the debt that might be coming down, that type of opinion may be changing once that comes time, depending on what your debt is and what PFA requires. A lot of our PFA cities do have what we call a yellow book audit, which just deals with more compliance for regulations and laws, but that'll be determined once the project is all finished. So very interesting presentation. I've never sat through one of those. Kind of interesting. We also issue a opinion over your internal controls. Now, we don't test those controls. We look at them just to help design our audit procedures, helps us be a little bit more effective, a little bit more efficient, without being too onerous on the city staff to get us information that we need. And so we will tell you if we see something that maybe needs to be tweaked or adjusted or just something that the council needs to be aware of, but we're not testing your controls, so we will not say whether or not they're working effectively. But like I said, if there is something that maybe could be adjusted or just be looked at, we're definitely going to be talking about that tonight. And our final opinion is over municipal legal compliance. We get a lot of different checklists. I think there's 7 different checklists we get from the state auditor every year. Deal with cash and disbursements, capital assets, debt, once you eventually take on debts. And as we go through these various audit areas, we're looking at those checklists and the various Minnesota state statutes that apply and making sure that the city is compliant with the state statutes that you are required to. So looking at some summary of those audit results on slide number 3, your financial opinion changed this year, as we're talking about, as you can see on the bottom slide. We were able to implement the Fireleaf actuarial report into this year's audit report. So you no longer have a qualified opinion. You have a clean audit opinion, or what we call in the auditing world, unmodified. So what that means is that all the numbers in there are fairly stated, and what you're seeing in that audit report can be relied upon. We have audit evidence for all those numbers that you're seeing in there, and all the commentary in the footnotes. We have audit documentation and support for all of those numbers, so they can definitely be relied upon. Some internal control findings we had this year. These are the same as last year with the material audit adjustments because we prepared the financial statements for the city. and limited segregation of duties. Like I said, same as last year, the function of this is just because you have a small staff, you have a one-person shop running everything. 98% of our clients have these kinds of findings, so nothing to be concerned about. But like I said before, something you want to make the council aware of, that there are some limitations in your internal control. And the best way to get over these is to stay involved. Make sure you're looking at checks, looking at bank recs, asking questions, something doesn't seem right. Doesn't mean that you don't understand it, just may need a little more information. So don't be afraid to get your hand up in the air and ask questions when things like that arise. And we're definitely happy to report we did not come across any legal compliance findings this year. That can be tough to do. We all know laws change all the time. There's always new laws and regulations coming down from the state legislature and the state auditor that all municipalities, whether you are Minneapolis or whether you are Good Thunder, that you need to comply with. So no small feat to not have a legal compliance finding. And I think this is the first one I presented where there were no legal compliance findings. So definitely a good job making sure you guys are staying in line with those state statutes. Now, again, that does not mean that you followed everything. It's not a legal determination. Thankfully, I'm not a lawyer. I am a CPA, but we definitely did not come across anything where you did not follow the state statutes. Some more required communications. We do recommend you guys look through the management report that we provide to the city. Is a lot more in-depth information than what I have time to go over tonight. We have recommendations in there for how you can improve things that we noticed as we were going through the audit. So definitely take the time to look through that management report. We spent a lot of time putting that together, gives a lot of good analysis and definitely some good recommendations. And the back side of that report will be all of our adjustments that we applied to the city records as well. As you will note there, in the Statement of Accounting Policies, we did adopt GASB 68 for the fire relief. And that's why we were able to remove the qualified opinion on the city's audit report and just give you a straight unmodified opinion this year. Some misstatements, we did have 26 journal entries. 2 of those were what we call odd adjustments, and that just means that something was not where it needed to be, or it was a large enough adjustment where it met our threshold to be what we call illegal. Both of those adjustments were material to the city's financial statements. And kind of as a gauge, last year we had 33 journal entries and 8 odd adjustments. So definitely a good improvement on Sue's part. Definitely want to commend her for doing a very good job this year. Leading to our difficulties, there wasn't none. She did a great job. I know we had a little absence here, but definitely did a great job getting the records ready for us. The team that showed up, things ran very smoothly. We were able to get the information that we needed, and we didn't have any issues getting through the audit that we had to do for the city. So I want to commend the city staff for making our jobs a lot easier. It's always easier when you have the support of the council and the city staff to get through our procedures. So. Okay, so now we're gonna get some financial trends of the city on slide number 6. What you see here are the historical cash and investment balances for the city. That grayish bar are your governmental activities. So what that is everything that is not sewer, water, or refuse. These are general fund primarily. And so what we can see here is that those bars are pretty high, averaging over $1 million. Your governmental activities are going very strong. There was a small dip from 23 into 24 that had to do with some transfers of the governmental activities had to give over to your business type activities for some projects where you just need some extra resource to flow over there. But a very nice rebound here in 25. So the overall takeaway for the governmental activities, very strong, very good, and well positioned moving forward. And really the same flavor with your business type activities. Like I said, that's your water, sewer, and refuse funds. Those are business functions. You can see there's been some steady growth over the last 3 years. Getting very well positioned there. And you might say, well, we have $548,000 in our BTA funds. What does that mean? We try to do that and give you guys some kind of ratio with the days of reserves. So what that says is how long can these funds operate given average expenditures before they run out of money. And you can see both of these are very well positioned. Both are up in 25 at 651 days for your governmental and over 1,100 for your BTA. So big takeaway here, plenty of reserves, very good, strong financial position in both governmental and your business. The next couple slides here, we're going to focus on the general fund. Why the general fund? Are we picking on it? No. That's because the general fund is your main operating fund of the city. Anytime someone looks at a city, the first place they're going is your general fund. Because that is your main operating fund where most of your revenue is coming in and most of your expenditures for governmental activities are occurring in your general fund. As you can see, there are some ups and downs in those bars up there. The red bar is your total fund balance. And fund balance is a funny word. What I want you to think of is what is your net worth? So if you were to pay all your bills and have nothing left over, what is your net worth? Everyone understands net worth. What do you have for cash versus your mortgage? Like what I have, US Bank gives me a net worth on my app or my website when I log in. That's what fund balance is. What is your net worth? Once you satisfy all of your liabilities, what do you have left over? General fund is sitting very well. So the green bar is your unassigned fund balance because there are various components of your fund balance. So the unassigned fund balance or net worth is what you have discretion over for whatever spending that you have statutory authority to spend. And as you can see, you ended the year at $918,000 and very good, very consistent, some ups and downs there. Nothing that is indicative of a structural issue with the general fund. A lot of those are just timing differences with accounts payable, accounts receivable that we are required to put in the report that can bring that fund balance up or down, but nothing to be alarmed about, nothing to be concerned about. You can see over the last 5 years, very consistent, very good, strong fund balance in the general fund, which bodes well as you're moved into a project here next year.
Where would that $117,000 come from the 801 to the 918 in the unassigned?
Oh, where does it come from?
Yeah, where did that,
Well, the difference between the red
generated.
bar and the green bar.
well, the two green bars, one.
From 24 to
24 was 801,000.
Yep.
And now it's at 918,000. That's 117,000. Where did that come from?
Profit. Profit of the general fund.
Return on your.
Okay.
That which we're getting into, and you're gonna see that on the next slide too, Mr. Mayor. So it's about 115-ish if we look at the other slide. So just kind of finish up on this slide, but yeah, good question pointing that out. We'll get to that here on the next slide. So again, what does it mean that you have $918,000? What is that in relation to the city of Good Thunder? So what we do is we take your fund balance and we divide it by your expenditures. The OSA recommends, and they have a statement of position on their website saying they like to have that to be about 50% of your fund balance to be your expenditures. You guys are well over that, over 120%, for all 5 years that we're looking at here. We take the position to have 75% be that ratio. You might say, why are we meaner than the OSA? I like to think we're nicer than the OSA, but the reason why is because we read a lot of bond rating calls. And when bond companies look at a cities, they like to see that general fund ratio to be around 75%. That's why we strive our cities to get to that 75%, because it's just more indicative of a stronger net worth in the general fund. And you can see you guys are blowing that away the last 5 years, well above our recommended and obviously far exceeding the OSA's recommended fund balance percentage. So general fund's very strong, very consistent, definitely no issues there.
So now when we go apply for some money for all of our projects, that kind of makes us look better that, well, we'd be conservative, but we're not a financial risk. I mean, the finance lady is sitting back there, so this should help everybody, right?
Yes. So the things that I think that they would look at would be your the fund balance of your general fund. Obviously, if you're talking water and sewer funds, they're going to look at how much revenue are you going to be generating, how much cash you put in the bank, which we'll get into here in the next couple of slides. But definitely, how are you doing with your general fund budget? Are you blowing your budget out of the water? We've had some cities where they're over budget by hundreds of thousands of dollars in a general fund. That leads into fiscal irresponsibility. But if you're able to maintain your general fund, if you're fiscally responsible how you spend your money in your general fund, it generally gives bondholders a little bit more comfort level, and it just gets your bond rating a little bit higher. It's either they're not going to give you money for the most part. I don't really get involved with all that, and they could probably speak more to that than I could. But it definitely gives you a better bond rating, and sometimes where interest rates are, it can give you a little bit lower interest rates on your bonding. But it depends on the type of bonds being issued too. So if it's water and sewer bonds, are they going to look at your general fund? Yeah, I would think so. But I think there's a lot of factors that go into that when they're looking at what's your credit worthiness for the city of Benton? I think it's more dynamic than just what the general. But it all plays a factor for sure. So the bottom side here, your budget actual for your general fund, very condensed here. The blue section there is your revenues. As you can see, you were over budget in your revenues by 159,000. A lot of that was just unbudgeted donations and investment earnings that came in. So what we're recommending is try to get yourself a 3-4 year average for what your investment earnings or donations are. Let's get some kind of budget in there. Is it good to be over budget in your revenue? Of course it is. But not having any budget in there, probably could do a little better than that and get some kind of, averaging. Donations can be hard to budget for, but if you look at a long enough time scale, you probably could get about an average amount of donations that you receive every year. And the same thing with your investment earnings, those are a little bit easier to determine, looking at 3, 4, 5 years, what's our average investment earnings, and get some kind of budget in there for the general fund for that. The next section down is the orange section, your expenditures, where it's all the money going that you're bringing in. For your current expenditures, you were over budget by $63,000. Largely had to do with some seal coating in your public works departments. Very large seal coating project that came in here, so that kind of makes sense. But again, just try to do some more forecasting. Hey, we know that we're going to be doing some seal coating in 27 or 28. Maybe try to work that into the city's budget so you're not going over budget. But your capital outlay was under budget by 32, so you end up being over budget by 30,000, which isn't out of, it's not bad. And a lot of those extra expenditures were covered by the excess revenue that the city brought in. So you can see the bottom there still had a very nice, strong profit in the general fund, $115,000 increase, which, like the mayor said on the previous slide, primarily went into your unassigned fund balance, which again is what you have discretionary spending authority over. General fund looking really good. Just maybe tweak those revenue budgets a little bit on your next budget season that's coming up here this fall. As far as expenditures, we personally are not very concerned about it. 30,000 is pretty minimal. Things here or there can swing that dial, but the fact that you had a nice strong profit in 25, I think bodes well for the cities. Any questions there?
We just, how much was our seal coating? Like the 100 and some odd?
98,000.
Okay.
And then
We just,
we had a changeover in our utilities and it just never, or in our public works, and it just never got. Yeah.
so we need to like budget
Side.
$35,000 a year. So when we do seal coating in 3 more years, that evens out.
Or just, well, it's not going to even out because that budget is just for that particular fiscal year. So like if you know you're going to be doing seal coating coming up in 27, you should be putting that into the budget this year when you're doing your budget for the general fund.
We've always been putting like 30,000, I believe, in there.
But like he said, it starts over the next year. It
Yeah.
doesn't carry on.
That's
right.
The budget goes away.
We were always,
So you don't accumulate your budget over 3 years.
we were always under the impression that you do 30 and next year it's 60 and the following year it's 90, but that don't work that way. No more.
Nope, all your budgets will lapse at year end.
Okay.
Yep. And so just getting in tune with your budget or your department heads, say, hey, what's your capital needs for next year? Do you need a new truck? Or repairs and maintenance are going to happen. Those are, what can you do? The engine blows. You can't budget for something. You can't budget for a water main break. Those things just happen. But some of the capital needs, I think you certainly could. How old is a public works truck? Do you have some seal coating because the roads are just getting rid of the chip sealing? I think is another thing that some cities will do. And if you know that you're going to be doing that, like say in 2028, then the fall of 27, make sure you put that in your budget.
So the fire department now is looking at a new, what's got rescue truck. So if they were here a month or two ago, whatever it was. And they
Donate 75,000.
if they find something that would fit their needs, we'd have the money. A third of it would be our cost, right?
Yeah, I think you guys built townships for some
Township
Yeah.
and that. So a third of it, so say if we have 85,000 in there and it costs us 105, that's gonna show that we're $20,000 off again, right?
Well, now what some of our cities will do for things just like that, so you're not blowing up your general fund budget, is they will create capital reserve funds or like a capital outlay fund, where they will take money and they will transfer money there every year, have like a public works reserve where you're taking 30,000 every year and you're transferring over to that fund. And that way, when you spend that money for seal coating, it's not gonna sit over here in your general fund, it's gonna come out of your capital.
Don't we have that,
several
some of our, don't we have capital outlay in some of these?
things- Say that again?
Don't we have capital outlay in some of this financial stuff here anymore?
I've talked with Carlson SV about creating those capital outlay accounts. And we just haven't, I went on leave, so we haven't done
Yeah,
it.
I know you've been out there and stuff,
So-
so. Something we can certainly readdress.
So it's something that, yeah, once I get a little more direction, when we kind of know what we're gonna do, then I was gonna contact and.
Reach out to us this summer, because we're still wrapping up our busy season.
Sure.
We're still flying 100 miles an hour. But we're definitely willing to assist you guys and, getting the entries in and getting Banyan set up for these capital types of funds.
That would be a better way to handle it, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. 'Cause
Lot
then
better.
you're not gonna blow up your general fund for
Right.
seal coating me.
Right.
And that way you could actually transfer actual cash to this fund and you say, okay, well, what do we have for public safety? What do we, because right now it's like, you really don't know. You have all this money to sit in your general fund unless you have it specifically earmarked for something and say like an assigned fund balance, you really don't know. But if you have an actual capital fund where we're gonna transfer 30,000 or 20,000 every year, and we say, well, the fire department capital, what do we got for capital? Well, let me pull up Banyan, let's see what your cash balance is in your 410 fund or 425 or whatever fund number that you want to give it, or whatever. You say, okay, well, you guys have $150,000 right now. Well, we want a truck for $500,000. Well, you better start coming up with some money then. Or the city can transfer money over there, but that way it's not gonna, it won't, not that it's gonna blow it up your general fund budget, but it's gonna be less impactful to your general fund budget by having these capital accounts, these capital reserve funds. So a very useful tool for cities to maintain and be a little more responsible, not that it's irresponsible, I'm not saying that, but just a little more responsible with the general fund budget. And do a little more fiscal planning too.
Because it'd be like seal coating of streets, the fire department. It would be great to have those, because them are big expenditures when they come due.
Yeah, especially with those fire department now, trucks are expensive.
Yeah.
That's the other reason, yeah, they're not cheap. Okay, so now we're gonna spend the next couple of slides looking at your BPU funds. We talked about these business type activities. So why do we call them business type activities? That's because the presumption is they will run like a business. And what do businesses do? They generate profit and they generate cash. So when we're looking at these next several slides, I want you to think that these are businesses, these are standalone businesses, just like any business here in town or any business in Mankato. The primary objective is to generate a profit and to generate cash. So we're going to start here with the water fund. A lot of things going on the slide. So we're going to take a little bit more time on this slide to describe kind of what I want you guys to be looking at and what I want you to be thinking about. The main line I want you looking at here is that blue line. There's your operating cash flow. And what that represents is what you are depositing in your bank after you pay suppliers and employees. What is actual cash in the bank? Because your operating income, that's not how you pay bills with your operating income, because there is a lot of accounting entries that we are required to put in your report that is not cash related. Depreciation is a big one. Accounts payable, accounts receivable, those are non-cash entries. The blue line is cash in the bank after you've paid all of your vendors and your employees. Now, looking here at the water fund, you can see there's quite a bit of dip there in 2023. Some significant repairs and maintenance were made. But what's interesting to note here and what's important to focus in on is what happened in 24 and 25. Your cash rebounded. So what that tells us when we look at this is that big dip there, there's not a structural issue with the water fund. You just had a lot of repairs and maintenance that year, and it ate up a lot of the city's cash. So the fact that you're able to bounce back and really generate some cash in 24 and 25 in the water fund means that your rates are probably about where they need to be as they sit right here in 2025 now or 2026. But with a future project coming up, what you need to be aware of and what the city council needs to be thinking about is when you're making these eventual bond payments with PFA, you need cash to do that. You're not going to be able to pay that with net income. You pay that with your operating cash flow. And you can see the last couple of years, it went from 43,000 up to 56,000. So say you're averaging about $50,000 cash in the bank for the water fund. And what you use that cash for, as you can see in that table down below, you're using it for partially interfund activity, whether you are borrowing money to another fund or whether you are accepting money from another fund because you don't have cash to stay afloat. You also have acquisition of capital assets, buying equipment, maintaining the infrastructure of the water fund. And soon you're going to have debt service requirements. So what you need to be aware of once these loans and once this financing gets in place is what is the debt service load on the water fund. And if it's more than $50,000, you're going to need to get your rates up because you need to be able to generate enough operating cash flow to just pay your normal expenses, paying employees, repairs and maintenance, supplies, utilities, things like that, and have enough to make that PFA bond payment or just the water fund. So as these bond schedules start coming out and the financing starts getting in place, be looking at what is our, because they're going to give you a schedule from 2028 out 30, 40 years, whatever they length they do that bond, 20, 30 years, pretty typical. But what is that annual bond payment? Not only principal, but interest. You need to make sure you have enough operating cash flow to make those payments. And this gives you kind of a good idea of where you've been sitting the last couple of years, 43, 56, around that $50,000 range, just for easy math. So if your bond payment is less than that, you should be okay. But you're also going to need to keep in mind other capital and repairs and maintenance that could come out of the water fund that is going to draw off that operating cash flow. That makes sense? So we're seeing that line kind of going up in the water fund. So just make sure that you're keeping a good eye on your rates and a good eye on your water cash flow, especially these big projects. A lot of big numbers are thrown around here, $10 million, not all that's going to the water fund, but it looks like a sizable chunk of it is. So once you start getting, I'm sure that they're going to help you kind of work through all that. But something that you guys can be aware of is that operating cash flow, you need to have enough money to be able to make your bond payments.
Will it be a 20 or a 30-year bond?
Yes.
What do you think is most feasible for us?
Well, if it's with the Public Facilities Authority, their initial offer will be a 20-year term. If you reach a specific affordability threshold, they'll offer you the opportunity to extend that to 30 years. But 20 years is the standard, 30 years if you hit a certain threshold.
Okay.
But you're gonna pay more interest over 30 years, so keep that in mind. So yeah, just something to be aware of. Just want to kind of point that out. Thanks, guys. It's bad. 20 years is pretty typical. Some go 30. Other bonds will go out to 40, but yeah, generally they're around that 20-year mark.
We don't know how much money we're gonna get from other entities to help pay for this
Yeah,
project, but
pretty early on in the stage, yeah.
if you had a guess, what Mark showed us up there, what portion do you think we'd be responsible for and just say the water treatment plant?
Point to that level, I can speak a little, Shannon's got a deeper dive into the affordability question, but in a broad level. There's three things I'll bring up on possible funding sources, short term. The state bonding request that was put in before Valley came on board. And I think it was 10 million something. On Sunday night at 11:59, the session has to be done. So it would be a really good time to contact your representatives at the state level and encourage them to get the Thunder funding. PFA we're going to put in for you in June 1st to get you on the intended use plan. And their funds don't, how am I going to say this? You don't know what you're getting for grant loan until the bids are in. We can do some affordability ciphering for you. The last thing, long term, I should say, is congressionally directed spending. Finstead and Smith have both forwarded your project at the federal level. So also encourage them to reach out. But if you have more questions, I don't want to take any time away from the audit. There's
That
more
definitely good
funding
things you
sources.
got to be considering, so. So I know we're working with the city up north where they got some state bonding money. They got $10 million. Different scenario than Good Thunder. It's not apples to apples, so just, keep in mind, but they're getting a new wastewater treatment plants, a whole bunch of water upgrades, and I think they're bringing on right now. We're actually just wrapping up that audit report too, and they had $2 million in debt. But you need to keep in mind, it has to do with the economic structure of the city. I think that kind of plays into the loan and grant as well, is what are you going to qualify for? Generally, lower income cities, you're going to get more grant money. For the city of Mankato, you're probably not going to get so much grant money because they're going to want to give you loan money. And generally, it's kind of a mixed bag. We're getting a little bit of grant, a little bit of loan.
So as soon as this project ever got going and we knew what we were getting for grant money, we would have to then be able to figure out what our debt will be per year.
And they take care of all that for you guys.
Okay, all right.
I just want to just kind of give you the numbers, kind of give, so that way you come and say, hey, your debt load is going to be 20,000 a year. Well, you're sitting pretty good. You may not have to raise your rates. I mean, should you always be raising rates? Yeah, because salaries need to go up, supplies and inflation goes up, repairs and maintenance goes up. So you should always be increasing your rates every year. But if your debt load is under your current cash flow trend, you're probably going to be okay. But it's all going to depend once all the financing, once all the dust kind of settles, because it sounds like it's still very, very preliminary. You guys are still in design mode. You're not even awarding contracts. You're not securing financing. That sounds like that's, months down the road, but just want to kind of, give you some numbers to think about, what can the water fund afford as it stands right now? And that's what this blue line is going to tell you, because that blue line is what you're paying bills with. You're not paying it with the orange line. Those have a lot of our accounting mumble jumble numbers in there. But that blue line, that's cash in the bank, cash in your account, and what you're writing checks out of that after you pay your operating costs. And that's going to be for your debt, your capital, and any type of interfund activity. Okay, so now looking down to sewer fund, kind of same flavor there. Looking at that blue line, not quite a big dip in 23, but we did see a little bit of a dip in 24, just some more repairs and maintenance. I had a little bit of pressure there from the sewer project you guys had back around that time. But overall, very strong. The sewer fund as well. As you can see, averaging again, I'd say probably 60,000 would be kind of your average cash flow, operating cash flow for the sewer fund. And that table down below is going to let you know what else is affecting your cash that's not showing up on your P&L on that orange line. So again, we have some interfund activity, some acquisition of capital assets, and once all the dust settles from the project, you're going to include debt service loads in the sewer fund as well, because it looks like the sewer fund is maybe a little bit less than what the water fund is getting, but there could potentially be some debt service there as well. But the sewer fund is sitting very strong, very good cash flows, very strong year-end cash balance at 325,000. So no real major concerns there with the sewer fund, but definitely just some food for thought as the debt starts getting, put on the city, you start making these payments. Now you kind of have an idea of like, what is our average kind of cash flow in the sewer fund? And you're averaging, I would say 60,000 is a pretty good number. It looks like 25 was a little bit above that, 64,000. So water and sewer fund definitely generating very good operating cash flow. And that is what it's going to be servicing your debt. And sometimes that's what bondholders look at as well. PFA is a little bit different in that respect. But water and sewer fund is sitting very good. So that makes sense so far? Clear as mud?
Let you know in a year and a half when all this gets going.
Yeah, I know. Then I get the audit. Yay. So refuse fund, not quite the rosy picture here. A lot of ups and downs here, a lot of fluctuations. We are recommending that the refuse rates go up. Even with the influx of $12,000 from the general fund, there's still no cash in our refuse fund. The rates got to go up. It's not supporting. There was a little bit of operating cash flow of $1,400, but with the nets, because there was some interfund loan that had to get paid back, that essentially was paid back with the transfer that was brought over. The refuse fund is basically out of money and is in financial trouble. Not that's gonna close down. I know we're talking about business type activities. But I think the picture here is the refuse rates need to go up. You need to be able to cash flow the refuse fund, and right now, the refuse fund is struggling and is not able to cash flow without help from the general fund, and you're putting undue pressure on your general fund, but not raising up your refuse rates. So those need to come up.
Are we supposed to make money on refuge or just make it viable?
Make money.
Make money?
Business type activities make money. Would you want a business that breaks even?
Well, I mean,
Business that makes
it's a service that, you know, we provide or hire to service for the public. So I didn't know if, you know, we were supposed to make $10,000 a year on it, you know? Cause when we have spring cleanup and summer cleanup, that's where we probably go backwards on this a little bit.
I would recommend at a minimum break even, ideally make some money.
Okay.
Because by making money in the refuse fund, you're taking the pressure off your general fund, your governmental activities, and that's what you want to be doing. These funds really should just be, like I was saying, they should be just kind of like in a vacuum. It should make money on its own. It shouldn't need, you know, support from other funds to be able to just break even, which is what we did in the financial report, because we can't show negative cash in here because of our governmental gap. We had to at least have it break even. Right now, it's not breaking even.
Yeah.
So
If you had to say what percentage you think we should go up right now?
I would have no idea. I'd have to go look. I would have no idea.
Okay.
Double.
So do we figure this out or where do we start to make this viable?
Why don't you get a hold of us this summer? That's something I think we could probably take a look at. I think that's outside the scope of what we're doing here with the audits. So that would be maybe a separate contract that we would be able to offer the city. If you want us to look at maybe some rate studies here and say, okay, what would it take to cash flow the refuse fund in particular? Because water and sewer can be a little bit different in that regards. And plus those funds are doing fine anyway. But if you want to get a hold of us, maybe like July or August, you know, after we get past June 30, because that's our big reporting deadline to the states. I think that's something we definitely could entertain, and I can bring that up to the partnership group and see if, you know, if we have to, now that we're part of a much larger firm, you know, and I'll get 80 professionals rather than just a handful of professionals we had before. I imagine that would be something we could help you guys at least figure out, at least give you a ballpark for what do we need to go up? Do we need to double? Do we just need to maybe go up 50% to make this thing cash flow? What do we need to do to have a little bit better answer? It's not really something I could answer right here, right now, without doing a little bit more in-depth study. What are your number of connections you have? What are you charging per connection? And different things like that all would play into it.
All right.
Okay, well, that's what I got for you guys for today. You can see our today. You can see our audit team there. Greg is a managing partner, is a partner of the Mankato branch. Got myself as a senior audit manager. We have Luke and Dane as our senior auditor and staff. So I'd like to put our information out there. As you guys have any questions, certainly as this project starts kicking down, please reach out to us. We will help you set fund accounting up, because there are going to be probably several different accounts that you're probably going to need. Project fund. I know you mentioned maybe the county is going to get involved, so there might be county participating potentially. Don't know. Sometimes these projects can, depending if it's on a county road. We can help you get your fund accounting and your structure set up. So as this money starts coming and starts going out, you have the account set up, and so you're recording it right there in the project fund as it starts coming in. So please reach out to us as things get a little bit more finalized. I don't know if that's going to be later this year or maybe early 2027. We can help get your funds and your structure set up and get that, you know, that basement set up. So as you start building the house, everything will just fall into place. So we've been through a lot of these. And so we can definitely, I can't handle the financing engineering part, but I can definitely handle the accounting side of it. And we can definitely offer our support to the city to help you guys get through this project, because it looks like it's going to be expansive and take a, you know, year and a half or more to get this thing done. So definitely like to offer our expertise on the accounting side of things to help get you guys through this. So, and selfishly, it helps us come out of time, because then everything will be generally where it needs to be. So, and because you've never been through something like this, it's a big undertaking for sure when you're talking a $10 million project. So,
All right. So all in all, the city's finances are good. The the record keeping, the accounting,
Absolutely. Yep.
everything
Strong
is-
staff position overall, governmental and business activities looking very strong. And everything was really good this year. Yeah, it was well done.
thank you, Sue.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Nice to hear.
Appreciate it.
Yep,
Thank you.
Have a good night.
have a good night. Yep. Okay. Any questions about the audit?
Nope.
Anybody? David Down and Associates.
Janet Sweeney with David Drown Associates, yep.
Okay, municipal advisor, we probably will need some advising. Yeah,
I'll tell you a little bit about what I do. For 25 years, I've worked for David Drown Associates. We serve cities, counties, and townships in Minnesota in public finance. So when our client communities are borrowing money, we help them with that process. We even provide assistance when you're accessing state and federal grant and loan programs. And so we have a lot of experience in working with those, and we can provide some advice there as well. A lot of times on projects like this, small communities in a position where they're paying significant design costs, and we're assisting with temporary financing to bridge the gap between when the project's being designed and when they're able to access state or federal funding. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to close on PFA funding until the bid is awarded and you've closed on a loan with them. All that time, you're on your own essentially compared to paying those engineering costs and design fees. Everything related to getting a project through the bid process. And so we work with Minnesota Rural Water. They've developed 3 programs that we administer and advise them on that provide varying amounts of money on a temporary or permanent basis for municipal projects. And so if there's a need identified, through the estimated budget for getting this project to construction that goes beyond the cash that you have available to afford to fund it with, we can assist with putting temporary financing in place to do that. We've done it with lots of your neighbors, including the Vernon Center project that you
Okay.
referenced, to work with Vernon Center for a number of years. So, I think the good thing I heard from your auditor today is that your enterprise funds, your water and sewer funds are already producing cash surplus, which is loan affordability in my world, meaning that you already got a head start on being able to afford the financing that you have to pay back. The magic is maximizing the financing that you don't have to pay back, and those are the sources that they were talking about with regard to the federal earmark, the state appropriation request, or eligibility directly from the state through Public Facilities Authority based on affordability calculation. We can get you close to understanding kind of baseline as long as you have a project that scores well, what your loan would be through the Public Facilities Authority, because they base it on a percentage of your median household income. I just saw a draft of that calculation, and ultimately their affordability threshold is about $136 a month, I think, instead of as far as a monthly water user can pay, or they'd be eligible for free funding from the state of Minnesota through the Public Facilities Authority. They indicate that 1.2% of your median household income is what you can afford to pay for water based on the median household income that they're applying. That number is about $136,000. So I suspect you want to improve upon that, and the way that you do that is the state appropriation request, federal earmark, or other programs that maybe identified. They said small cities wasn't on the table for this project in particular.
47%. Their LMI is 47% and they need to be 51.
Yep.
We typically don't recommend a income survey until they're at least 48. And even that, I'm not sure we've ever not sure we've actually been able to pull 48 up over the 51. It's tough.
Understood. So, your median household income is the barometer that establishes the baseline for people. Because both the federal government and the state government use that as the barometer for determining what your grant eligibility is. Ultimately, that median household income, they've become more aggressive on monitoring that and updating it. For a number of years, they're using, for example, at the state, the 2010 median household income. Probably for at least 10 years, almost past that. And so the affordability thresholds were much lower for a period of time, and now they've got more aggressive as free money is hardly to come up. So ultimately, that's, again, just indicating the areas where you can improve upon that. You're already contacting your legislator, telling them that this is important and that affordability threshold's been moving in the wrong direction for greater Minnesota.
How do you get a hold of them, or what is the procedure to do that? Just send them an email and tell them, or do we tell them the numbers of our project? The scope of it?
Yeah.
Do you include numbers, or do you just say it's a large undertaking for a small town?
Yeah, at this point, for this legislative session, if you wanted to do anything meaningful, it's probably just gonna be an email at this point or a call to your state representatives and just indicate, we have this project, we're expending significant funds in the design process. We need to implement some of these things. We have an appropriation request. Any amount that you're able to get under that appropriation because reference. So if they're able to be at the table, at midnight on Saturday or whenever the last day of the legislative session is, and if they have that kind of bargaining power, I've seen money move quickly in that last night of the session for state appropriations. So making them aware that you have a project that's more imminent now, that you're working on design may help that cause. So
That'd be Born Olson, right?
yes,
And did he say something about instead do?
that's national.
That's
So-
national.
The ones were,
Yeah, so do you get them involved?
in Klobuchar, correct?
It was Smith and Finstead.
Smith and Vincent,
And
okay.
that's for federal. Federal, they've already moved that project forward. And so they've kicked you up to the next level. And so that one, there's no session that's ending that makes that one time sensitive. It's the state appropriation right now. So it would be.
So Born Olson is our only contact to,
You
really
have-
contact to,
You have a senator and a house rep. I don't know who your senator is. Is Bjorn a senator?
He's a representative.
Yeah, so it'd be your senator. Used to be Julie Rosen, perhaps.
I'll grab it here quick.
Don't know.
Yeah, it would have been her, I believe. You're right.
Yeah, she retired. She was very good at bringing money into her district.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah,
Yeah.
she was exceptional. But
Those would be the two people then.
yes,
I
your,
mean,
your state senator and your state representative.
So just have Sue create a letter and stating,
Yeah, letter, email, calls, just indicate that we're in the design process and this is important for us, so. At the end of the session, if there's any push. That would be all.
Draheim, Rich Draheim,
Oh, yeah.
sorry, Republican.
I don't know.
So we'll see if we have any draft letters that you might read.
Perfect, thank you.
so we get to a point where we are out of cash to pay the engineer. And that's where you could fall in and get us some,
Yes, I wouldn't wait till you're out of cash,
right? Yeah. But I mean, where do you go to get that money?
again, it's Minnesota Rural Water, has
Okay.
3 programs. Essentially, they work with 3 or 4 lenders that are well versed in working with small cities on projects like this. Normally, when we approach a bank, they aren't monitoring the bond market, so they don't know what a reasonable interest rate is. Two, they don't understand the pledge that the city's making for repayment, which is a very solid pledge. You can issue what are called general obligation bonds. Those, there hasn't been a default that we're aware of in the history of Minnesota on a general obligation bond. So they're essentially that general obligation pledge means they can compel the county auditor to levy against your taxpayers for repayment of that debt. And so there just hasn't been a default on one of those because at the end of the day, they can tax your residents for repayment. And so that gets you a lower interest rate over a typical commercial loan.
The risk goes down.
Yeah, there's very little risk. And as your auditor mentioned, because of your cash position, even though you're a small community, they would easily see that you accumulate cash and run your books well. You're not running on at the very edge. You've actually created positive cash flow already to make debt service payments on projects that are imminent. Those are all very positive things. We can also, through the state's Public Facilities Authority, get a credit enhancement from the state on utility projects. The state will provide a guarantee for $500. It's a limited guarantee to step in and make the payments if you don't. And that, you know, if by the size of your community gives the lender any pause, that guarantee talks them into it, which is available on a utility project. So you may not even need to use that program, but if you did, it's there and would, you know, be something that would provide that additional security that would convince the lender to provide the temporary financing that, you know, you might need. The interest on that temporary financing is eligible to be paid by the state when you essentially close on that loan. And, you know, ultimately it's additional interest expense and it's not going into the ground, so it's not doing anything terribly useful. But if you need it and you need to preserve cash, that's what it's used for.
So is your firm associated with Bullock then or involved, or do we have to hire you separately or?
We work with many engineering firms. We're a private, we're required to act in your financial interest on any decision and any recommendation. That's our obligation under the federal license that we have. We need to advise you of the lowest overall cost of borrowing that's practical. And so that's what we work on.
So we hire your,
Yeah, and ultimately you really aren't hiring us. We typically only get paid when we close on a transaction. So the clock's not ticking when I'm here tonight. It's not ticking as soon as you say we want to work with you, Shannon. You know, ultimately you say we need some temporary financing, help us size it. We have a standard fee schedule on these loans. I'll give you a copy of the loan application. For both legal counsel, that's been pre-negotiated, and for us. And so you can see what the fees are on transactions of various sizes. And ultimately, that's what we assist with.
I think on a project this large, I mean, we need some advisement and advisement to make sure we stay on board with our finances and everything. Mark?
I'd like to ask a question on your behalf. You know, the city has a cash reserve of X amount. And in terms of paying for the design and bidding, they talked about how much of that would they want to spend or how much of that they would want to preserve. Are there factors in terms of like PFA affordability and grant loan, or is there any consideration to how much they would want to spend that cash down to in order to maximize a potential grant loan, or is that not really a factor?
It shouldn't be much of a factor. I suppose PFA could step in and say the city should spend some of this cash on the project. I haven't seen them do that.
Okay.
They look at they're gonna base their grant historically on what are our folks paying with respect to their median household income.
Yeah.
And And they tend not to look at external factors like cash unless it disappeared all of a sudden, just in
Yeah,
advance of a
yeah,
project.
yeah.
But otherwise, we can certainly tell them those funds are needed for subsequent street and utility reconstruction work or things like
Sure.
that. And we have that earmarked for other, needs within the enterprise. I'm not concerned about having, and in the whole scheme of things, what does a mid-sized lift station cost these days?
Oh, yeah,
It's
$500,000.
yeah, I mean, what feels like a lot of cash quickly becomes not very much cash if you have a lift station that fails. So, your levels are, great for a community your size, but in the whole scheme of things, when stuff breaks in our business, it's really expensive.
They don't go far in this day and age.
Yeah, and so understanding that you need to retain, some of that cash for that purpose.
It's a question I get from cities all the time where, they wanna, and we want to too, like, make sure they're set up to achieve as much grant as possible.
Yeah.
So it's a question.
Rural development, USDA, the federal government will look at your tax
That's a different
position
animal, yeah.
and say, you need to spend this much of your tax.
Yes, which we're not working with here.
We're not
Okay.
working with those.
So
folks.
maybe, if I may, for the city, it's how much of that cash do you want to retain for everything else it is you do? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of your decision or however, but
That's what we need to be advised on. Just say for easy figuring, we have $1 million.
yeah.
Do we take 500,000 of that and put towards this project? Or do we just take 250,000 and put towards this project and keep that for future?
Understand that, at the end of the day, whatever you spend now is on a temporary basis and it's gonna get paid back when you close on your PFA loan.
It will all get paid back.
Yes, nearly all of it, yes. And
Okay.
so it's how much can we draw down our reserves for this temporary period of time and still feel like we can adequately cover anything else that's going on in the city. And so, we'd want to just understand what the budget is from here until, a bid date. Ultimately PFA closes not long after the bids are received. And so we would understand that that's kind of our time horizon for having to pay for costs and determine if we have a budget for those
Mhm.
costs, what they are, and see what we're comfortable in paying in cash versus borrowing.
The amount you borrow is from Minnesota Rural Water. How much you pay for that loan depends on how much you borrow. So if you borrow $300,000, it might cost you $15,000 for the loan. If you borrow $800,000, it might cost you $30,000. And then I don't know, the interest rate is 4.5%, 5.5%.
So 4.5 to 5 typically on a temp loan.
Yeah, on a temp loan, so
So I'll give you the fee schedule, but. We do microloans up to $250,000 at $5,550. And I'll leave this with you so you can see what the fees are. That's the most efficient program we have is the microloan, which does up to $250,000. And that's legal, fiscal, everything for $5,550. If we go above that, then we're getting into the next program, which is called the MIDI loan. That's anything over 250,000 to $1 million. And then our fees are, in that $10,000 to $18,000 range, depending on how much you borrow. So. But those fees are renegotiated. The program gets used a lot because it's lower than if you just hired me not working for Minnesota Rural Water. And so we take a pay cut, the attorney takes a pay cut. We pre-negotiated those fees to basically help small communities borrow a lot smaller amounts of money more efficiently, because otherwise it was a $15,000 to $20,000 deal every time you needed to borrow a little bit of money. And that seemed like too much. This year. The other thing we do is we provide advice on rates, utility rates as part of the service. When we're working on a loan, we'll I've already looked at your financials, and so you said, what do our rates need to, what's the outcome of our rate increases that are needed in order to afford loans that we think we might have, we dive into that stuff. Property taxes as well. Is there a street construction component? Yeah, we get into that too, so.
All right. I think we'll need some advice from people that do this for a living,
No, by far.
We have worked extensively, like you said, we're separate companies, but Shannon has helped us with so many communities, and he has a great way of explaining this process and working everyone through it and understands a small community, so we very appreciative.
Where we would start is just go through the projects and collect some additional detail, particularly on the street and utility reconstruction with storm sewer, and start working our way through how that gets paid for, so. Those tend to be harder than just the water stuff. I know it's a lot more money on just the water side, but the funding there tends to be a little more straightforward through the state, so.
You said the 30th is the deadline or something?
It's the end of the legislative session.
Okay, so does that have an effect whether this project will go, or is that gonna give us a yes or no, or?
If you want to improve upon what PFA can offer, it's the next one on the list that is an opportunity to take you below that affordability threshold potentially. So when we said roughly $136 a month for a water customer, the only way to improve on that would be state appropriation or the federal earmark. USDA is not is admittedly saying we don't have much for grant funding, and their affordability threshold is now 1.75% statewide, so they'd be, higher than $136 by a good margin again, so. They're not the entity of choice at the moment for working with. They were when Vernon Center was doing their project, but they've run dry on grant funds and they've kicked up what they say folks can afford, so.
Did they have to raise a lot of their rates over there? Because I mean, man, they got new streets, they got water and sewer, they did a lot.
They did, but the affordability threshold was quite a bit lower that they were operating under. Instead of $136, it was probably closer to like $55.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Really?
that was, that project started years ago. Understand that that USDA process is probably 3 to 4 years of just planning before you're even, taking bids. And so
In terms of like communities, these statistics we're talking about, like median household income, percentage of low to moderate income residents. For me, I don't think there's a year that goes by that I don't go into a new town and go, wow, that surprises me one way or another. It's like some of them, it looks, there's a few towns, it's like, it almost feels like a ghost town. And then median household income's $88,000 or something. And there's some you go into, it's like, oh, this is pretty nice. And median household income's like, $39,000 or something like that. It's just, it's so.
yes.
And a lot of them do kind of, I guess, make sense for whatever that's worth. But I don't know if you find that too. Shit,
Yeah, I can never guess.
There you go.
Can't judge a book by the cover.
Yeah.
No, not even close. So, but I mean, these folks are pursuing the right stuff that's available to try to get it as least expensively as they can. And so, I'm not adding anything to the mix with regard to what I think you should be going after, because it sounds like you're already chasing most of it. And so at the end of the day, my usefulness is around talking about how those programs get applied, whether or not we need temporary financing in the meantime. And, beyond that, it's helping process wise a little bit with working with the state. So.
Sounds good.
Mhm.
All right. As long as we're talking about this whole scope of this project, do you have anything to add to any of this, Mark? Any?
My three pieces, state bonding, PFA, state bonding is your most immediate, PFA is the next one up in first Friday in June, which you moved on to the IUP, and then federal funding, the congressional directed spending from Finstead and Smith is out there. You can touch base with them, thank them, maybe.
I did get a couple emails and I just kind of thought, well, I hadn't gotten that far yet.
Yeah,
So-
and if you get any information, just send them our way.
Okay.
We have that in the mix, we can.
Shannon, with CDS, so they've cleared the first hurdle,
Yeah,
but there's more.
yeah.
They're good better as in, there's a ways to go.
Yeah,
Let's say they make it all the way to an actual award
yeah,
and this water plant is in the middle of construction.
yeah.
Can that $2 million be used on that project, or do they have to encumber it before the project start? Or is that money for like future utility, if they get it?
Yeah.
Can you speak to like the timing of when it,
Yeah, I don't even understand the bidding requirements on federal funding, and so if we weren't meeting the bid requirements or didn't have them in the initial project, I would guess that we wouldn't be able to use it on that project.
okay,
Each entity has their
yeah,
requirements for participating in their program, whether it's American Steel or
BABA or,
Build
yeah.
America Biden.
yeah,
And so that would be the first question I'd have.
let's assume we would meet those, because I think we
Yeah.
would. We're not doing funky stuff.
I think in one of the communities I serve, they did receive an earmark. You can't remember if it was after bids were awarded though.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to your question.
Just more of a
Maybe
curiosity,
explore
but
We would find something to use it on. We'd hope it was written broadly enough to do that.
Historically, they've accepted a very broad scope.
Yeah.
When you want water improvements,
yeah,
it covers drinking water, wastewater, stormwater.
Yeah,
So historically, they've been generous in their scope. Because this, I have a good timeline, if federal funds came through, I'd say good timeline would be maybe 2 years. In another city you're working with, it's going on 3+.
Yeah.
Till it's finally
yeah.
Sure.
coming through EPA.
What I would start on now though, to assist with all of this is I'll put in just the funding sources that we know are immediately in front of us, PFA.
yeah, right.
And we'll put together a project cash flow based on everything that's being constructed and likely funding sources based on the rules that they publish and say this is how we look at projects. And we'll have a good understanding of what it means with regard to all of our enterprises and tax levy. And then at that point, we'll understand if we're ready to proceed or if we need to figure out, a different scope, or if other funding has to kick in before we're willing to implement this stuff. But for today, we would just have an analysis based on the funding that's right in front of us. And we'd hope that we could improve upon it between now and implementation, but you'd at least understand where you're at today. And you making some decisions based on what you're investing in, so.
So that's something that you could put together
Yep.
for us.
Yep.
And okay.
Gonna need some leadership.
So is that something council needs to vote on?
I would think
You're
so.
not obligating yourselves to pick. So I would just do it, so you can certainly vote on it, but I'm not gonna send you a bill for assisting in
right.
that part, so just so you understand.
Council discussion, think it's good idea?
Yeah, we need representation for sure.
Oh, yeah, very advantageous to have backing and help, yes.
We would agree.
All right. What I do is I just, here's all the loans that I think you're gonna have. This is what they cost. I plug it into your cash flow as your auditor was talking about to see where we're at with current rates and supporting that. You know, you already have some affordability now with the surplus cash that you're generating in both your general fund and in your water and sewer funds. And so you have some affordability in the system already to take on loans. So we will, you know, I'll give you estimates on what rates would have to do in order to accommodate everything you're looking at. So.
And that would let us know if we need to raise our rates then, or if we're, okay,
Yeah, and ultimately, at this point, it's if you implement the project based on these assumptions on funding, this is what it's gonna cost your customers. And so, then you make a decision if we're heading in the right direction and all that good stuff, so.
okay.
How long a time frame will this all take, you know, with the numbers that are up in that board, Mark, and with working with the state, Minnesota,
Giving you the timeline for the PFA process, which is bidding this fall. I'm gonna give you information very quickly that just says this is what it means if the earmark and the state appropriation don't materialize. We'll probably know before I'm done on the state appropriation for this year. But at the end of the day, we'll have an analysis and understand if the direction we're taking is the right one.
so we're sitting here thinking about grants and this money to do this project. I wonder if they come in very, very short. And can the city afford to do all that?
That's your decision to make. You know, I want you to have good information when you make that decision, so.
Because just looking at what Vernon Center did, it's like, I myself, I couldn't ever think how they could afford to do what they did over there.
They had a different USDA that they were working with at the federal level would be my response, but they also, Senator Rosen got a state appropriation, a significant one for that project as well. And so, you know.
Could have been some county aid and
There was county road work that was done, so that was more.
some of that, someone like with the water and sewer, sometimes it's like, it's the street restoration above that can, you know, add significantly to,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Well, they got all new streets, curb and gutter,
yeah.
a lot of sidewalks.
Did they assess anything? Or
No, I don't think they did.
typically,
They what?
I don't think they assessed anything to their residents, did they?
I don't know. I never asked that question.
Yeah, the residents have to pay for the new,
Oh, do they?
their house, yeah,
I mean, they took down a lot of trees over there. That was a big expense right
from
there.
the street to their house.
Oh, okay, they had to pay for that,
So,
but they didn't have to pay any assessments for the roads or anything.
No,
I didn't think so.
really?
They're just
Wow. And that's been in the works for like 3-4 years, 5?
Oh, it was, that project is, now it's. I'd have to look back at my record. That one's been going on for probably, I bet the planning started on that 10 years ago.
yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
those RD projects, that is a marathon.
yes. And again, I mean, I was just talking to USDA in the last couple of days for another small community like you that's trying to figure out a path forward. And USDA is just clearly not the path forward right now with the funding that they have available. So the second it changes, you know. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
If you have like arsenic or radium in your
Yeah.
drinking water, or if your ponds or your plant like can't properly treat sewage and you're releasing sewage into a river,
Yeah.
they might have some grant for
Yes.
you.
I-
But if you're like, well, our pipe is old, it's like, okay, we'll give you a loan that's a little bit better than a bond, maybe,
It's pretty close.
but they're not, there's just,
Plus you have the expense of working through the process, which is significant, so.
See, our ponds, we were too high on the phosphorus. We didn't have enough time to hold it. And you know, now we're treating it.
Yeah.
And now we're in great shape.
Yeah.
But we took that all on ourselves and paid for all that.
Yeah.
We pay for the treatment, you know, I forget what chemical it is in it. But anyway, now our numbers are fine. So,
Radium is what you're saying?
No, we're not. Yeah. Even cash flow on your lining, I know your sewer lining stuff, you've been
Yep.
kind
That's
of
where it's some of them,
budgeting and paying for.
yeah, some of them dips in that there were probably when we lined a
Yeah,
bunch of
that was-
pipes. So,
Water meters, pipeline.
yep, and the water meters, yep.
And that's why Mark included the language for in his presentation, for rural development for small cities, you know. For all the funding sources, just in case the fund changes and funds shift. Then we've held the public hearing. And we're ready to move on that.
Do you have a small printout of that public hearing that of your demonstration by chance?
I do.
Good.
I want to make sure I didn't write something.
Otherwise, if you have something, you can email me too, just so I can reference it. Be great.
Just want to make sure I didn't make a note.
I think you made your notes on the big one.
Yeah, you did write on that.
Here you go. You can have this one.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
I'll forward you the power or the PDF.
Oh, okay, thanks.
All right, well, should we make a motion to hire Dave Drone and Associates to,
What I'll do when I provide that analysis, which is, there's no bill that comes with it. But I have what's called an engagement letter
okay,
that the feds require me to give to you that tells you my responsibility to act in your best interest. We look for that to be signed. It doesn't obligate you to hire or pay us to do anything. It just, it's something we keep on file in case we're audited to say that we made the city of Good Thunder aware of our obligation to act in your interest. So
all right,
I will send you that, and if you want to act on that, you certainly can.
okay,
But for today, I'm just telling you, I'm gonna send you some stuff, and if you like it, you'll probably keep working with me, and if you don't like it, you probably won't, so.
all right, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
That sounds like a handshake agreement, yes.
Yeah.
All right, anything else then? These people probably want to head back home.
No.
Anything we missed or anything we need to know?
Well, I think we're gonna dive deep in, you know, with the initial analysis to understand, you know, where we're headed. I think when we get through that process, you know, you'll have a better idea on how to pick direction, so.
All right. Well, thanks all of you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Guys,
Appreciate your guidance.
we love working with you guys.
All righty, see you again.
Thanks.
All righty,
Great, thank you so much.
So far.
street update with Eli. Is Eli not?
Eli isn't here. He's teaching, so he did have his notes in here. And he did, you guys get the restriping quote for 1428?
Yeah, that was in our packet.
Okay, all right.
And the restripe, what, and by that, it's everything that they did
That's the
before.
parking, that's the crosswalks. Yeah, just going up and retouching all that stuff.
Okay,
Yep. Yeah, that was Peter's striping. And then the bid for cars to come out and do the trees, there's gonna have cars come out because that was lower.
lower, it was half.
Well, yeah, that's lower.
Wow. Yes.
They
tagged that tree on Main Street.
Yeah.
I think he had it wrote down too for that one homeowner that.
Yeah, yep, that one, yep, and I think there was maybe 2 trees there, the rest.
Well, they said something about,
Two.
I don't know if we would do the other one. They didn't know what they meant by other one.
There didn't, the additional trees needed. So. Yeah, it looks like, and according to his notes, we're moving 5 trees from the boulevard. A resident would like, considering moving the remaining 2 healthy basswoods. The size of the trees are $1,500 to remove. Size of a tree, so. Council wants to move forward on that. They needed a bid on the additional tree removal for those 2 healthy ones. Council.
They want to get rid of good.
That's what I didn't understand why we should be paying for
Healthy.
healthy tree removal.
Probably because it's a type of tree that branches fall or something.
Down the same property.
Yes, it's the same resident, yes.
Wish they would have came up with,
I only remember one tree on there.
well, the one
There
that,
was one that we need to take down.
yeah, it's dead.
Yep,
Yeah.
needs to be removed due to the health of the tree.
She said there's two
But
other.
there's also considering the resident is also removing the remaining 2 healthy basswoods. So she can plant, or they can plant new trees. But if there's
One's on their
nothing,
on their.
sounds
on their
like,
Property.
so I don't know where the trees are, if they're on I'm assuming they're on the boulevard because of the note, but I don't know.
No, I don't think we take down healthy trees.
So,
I think, well, we just gotta keep up with the bad ones for now and then maybe a year or two,
Right.
we could do that, but. Right now, let's just keep up with the bad ones, take them down.
Only two on the property there.
let's throw on the other side, so.
That's on the private property.
Did Eli have anything about that street continuation up there?
Yeah,
Yes, but he's still waiting for a bid. He's only got 1 bid so far, and I think he was waiting for another one.
Yep, okay.
and they did get a whatever temporary guideline of what they're gonna do or something.
Yes, from Peters.
Yeah. Well, he got it from,
Or
he talked to these guys or something, didn't he?
To Bullock, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To get a little reference from them or.
Yeah,
that could be that.
that was in, I got too many,
Okay.
too much paperwork.
Yeah, you'll have to,
Oh, yeah, it is right here.
Yeah.
Bullock sent
Then the.
typical section design for gravel extension, right there.
this is just. Oh, okay. So he's only got 1 bid so far
There it is.
for that. So do we need a motion for the Cars Tree Service?
Yes, we
For
should.
the 4750, that does not include the 2 healthy trees that the resident wants to be removed.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, can I get a motion for that, please?
Somebody make a motion for Carter's Tree Service to remove those trees, 5 trees.
I'll make a motion for Cars Tree Service to remove the dead trees,
The 5.
the 5 boulevard. trees.
Yep.
They're dead.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I oppose, motion carried. Down here it says gravel and oil on Hiller Drive in Milky.
So. Yes, resident came in and asked about if they're gonna oil Hiller and asked if we would put gravel down prior to oiling to keep it without the rumbles. Getting ripped up, and then I talked to Eli and he asked me to put this on the agenda because Hiller does need some work, I guess, on it.
The very bottom of it.
It hasn't been maintained, I don't know the exact.
Usually we have Peterson come over and motor grade it. A couple and shape it up for us.
Yep.
And maybe we need some rock after that point, or we need rock before they do it.
Well, yeah, according to what I understood was that the resident would like the gravel put down and then oil on top of it, and then that will stay and it won't get all washboardy. So according to Eli, he said we hauled gravel on Hiller last year, but it was neglected for a long time, so another few loads could be hauled. And he wanted to know, he asked, we can ask if we're just okay doing oil on Hiller and Milky and leaving the rest of the town for a year since it's in better shape and has a decent hard surface. So that's the question.
I think what we did oil with that good stuff,
Mhm.
got pretty good hard surfaces.
Mhm.
That we could probably get by this year.
Okay,
As far as Hiller and
Milky.
Milky, we never did, I don't think we put that good oil on there. They never got a firm base like we did in this other ones. Of course, there was recycled on them too, that's right.
correct.
Um,
So yeah, do they want to do the same thing we did last year with the oil, whatever oil that was?
it must have been the same oil that we did these other streets with,
Yeah, must have been.
Oh,
because the other one, the only other thing was that chloride from that one other company,
That kind of washed away.
Yeah, that doesn't hold.
No.
No. So I guess if Eli feels the need to do some rock and grading,
Okay,
get them up there and to get some oil on there, then,
okay. We want to have it done prior to August 1st
Oh, by
or
far.
after,
Way before.
prior,
because that stuff was.
but you want to get it done as soon as possible
Yes.
because otherwise you want the whole summer with dust.
So so we'll have him get a hold of Peters.
Get it done sooner, yeah.
Okay,
Did he have any report on how well our cleanup day went? He's got a little,
dumpster day was a massive success.
yeah, that I read that part.
Yes, yeah, that's all he said.
Something about getting wider ones so we
Well,
can,
I guess, there might have been a little confusion. They only brought one dumpster, then he called for the other one. And it wasn't on their schedule to bring another one.
I
I'm
thought,
not sure.
always had.
We've always had two, so I wasn't here either, so there was miscommunication somewhere. And the dumpster, the second one they brought was narrower
yeah.
Okay,
than the first one, so.
Do you have,
Curve.
do you have a dollar amount what that costed us?
Right now, I'm sitting at about $900, and that was just from Waste Management. Where is my,
For those dumpsters?
$125 for the dumpster delivery. And if I can find my mess,
That was probably just the dumpster itself, not the emptying.
Right.
that was just to deliver and then it was like $900 so far for Minnesota Waste Management. I have not got the one from LJP yet,
Okay.
so
So we're talking
One was full.
$1,400.
probably somewhere around there.
Yeah.
but at least it was used, it was,
Well, right, I don't know if there was anything that shouldn't have been in there. Cause I haven't gotten anything from LJP.
yeah, I was reading the community page already and they had one pop up about when's cleanup days? They
Oh,
were. They
yeah, I did hear people said that they didn't know about it.
something wasn't in your water bill. Yeah, it was.
I don't know how it couldn't,
Water bill.
but yeah, so anyway,
Yes, 2 different times. So that's the week before.
All right. Is that enough on Eli then?
yes, that's enough for Eli.
Just
Okay, water update. Did we get anything from Brian?
No,
What's that?
All right,
it's your neighbor.
I thought he was supposed to be here, so
clerk treasurer update.
Where
I don't even know which one.
I finished the institute. I've got my 3 years in, so I will apply for my certification. In November, I have to have 3 years of MCFOA, and that'll be in November. So then I will get all my certificates together and I will apply for the certification.
Perfect.
So I should have that by first part of next year.
Good deal.
So, thank you.
You got something here, transfer 4M this month or?
The other part I have is, yes, we need to do something. We need to transfer from the 4M fund into our general fund. The last bill I got from Bollig was $180,000. We need to put some money into our checking account.
Okay, so
So right now we're sitting at what, 900,000 in our 4M fund. How much does anybody remember what council had talked about pulling from there and then getting the rest for?
For the total, it was like,
we were gonna take down
It was like
half.
$1 million, right? It was like $1 million.
even when we talked
Something.
900,000, we had talked about taking
Taking
400
Or
or
500,000.
leaving 500.
Would we just take it in like, say, $200,000 increments? You know, cause it's gaining interest.
We can, however, I think at this point. I think we should take no less than
250 or,
250 to 3.
okay,
Cause you said you already paid out how much?
Well,
100 and,
I just wrote a check right today for
80?
80,000.
yes,
Right now, our checking account sits at 280.
better take at least 3.
And then, well, yeah, cause then when the bills I wrote out today, just the ones I did, were like 230. So. And I don't think we get our first one until what, June, July? Our first.
yeah, it'd be at least probably July, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say,
But we won't have any other big bills coming until,
well,
do you think Bullock will have another one?
so far, according to this, there's 374,000 remaining after I pay the 180. So, but I don't know when that'll get billed either.
Yeah,
But we also, like I said, talked about, or you had said, talked about getting borrowing half of it too.
Yeah, we
When
were.
you look at this,
500,000.
if we were to borrow $750,000, it costs about $18,200.
Yeah, but he was talking about, Shannon was talking about that one there was gonna cost, $5,000 for $250,000.
Something like that.
Yeah. A micro loan,
Yeah,
$250,000 was gonna cost $5,500.
but we're not a micro loan though.
Unless you can do it.
Population says 200 persons. Our population is
580.
580 or 550 or something. So. And that's only up to 250,000.
Yeah,
And they're talking, what I've got circled here is 750,000, and I'm not sure who wrote that.
well, maybe we should just take $300,000 out of the forum,
Okay,
for now,
okay,
you know, and if another bill comes in July, we might have our money, or we could take either two.
Yeah.
right, okay.
Yeah, I would.
I'm good with that, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so probably need a motion on that, right?
A motion to approve the resolution, yes, because I added some extra papers on your,
It's gotta be drawn out by resolution.
yes.
Okay.
needs to be approved by- And then what happens is I contact 4M and they just shoot it right over. So,
Well, somebody might can make a motion on the resolution. Do we have a number?
resolution 2026-04.
2026-04.
It's a resolution to transfer funds from the 4M account to the general fund in the amount of $300,000.
200, or should we make it 3?
300,000, you said.
I'll make a motion on the resolution to transfer funds from the 4M account to the general fund. Resolution number 2026-04. In the amount of 300,000.
All right, Amy made a motion. Someone a second?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I oppose. Motion carried.
That is pretty much all I have. I will be here. I won't be here tomorrow. My hours are gonna be a little sporadic. I did 8 hours today, which was not a good idea. So. But I'll be here as much as I can.
All right, sounds good. Unfinished business, anybody?
You could take that. All right.
Yeah, we had one of those. I had a question on that.
There
If,
should,
if this isn't a new garage and he's just replacing,
he didn't need a building permit.
that's.
They weren't, yeah, John wasn't sure, so he had him fill it out.
Okay,
So as long as he filled it out, we have it on there.
okay. So this is, yeah, that's what I thought. It was
Yeah.
replacement. It's not,
And that actually, yeah, that goes into our consent agenda.
yeah. Okay.
Unfinished business, anything? New
Well,
business?
again, we still got other stuff that we're heading into summer. We still have issues with our yards, cars.
We're running into a brick wall with that. We've been working, there's 2 yards that we brought over to Kennedy. And he was going to file the abatement process or start that process. And he didn't like the verbiage that was used in the reporting. It can't be anything that could be construed as probable. It has to be fact. Now, you can't get fact because you can't go on somebody's private property. So that's where our brick wall is. So like vehicles, I mean, we can deal with other things, but vehicles that appear to be non-working will not fly.
But
How
they have
about
to
not
have,
currently licensed?
It is currently non-licensed is one thing, but inoperable, I think, doesn't our ordinance say inoperable?
Which
I
thing,
believe
if
so.
you took a picture,
You have to prove we can't say inoperable unless you can prove it's inoperable.
If it sits there with flat tires,
There's pictures to prove that. Can't prove you can't prove it's not. So Eli and I, like I said, we've been dealing with this since last November, I think is when the last one. And it was, then I asked him this spring, I emailed Kennedy and said, can we start this? And he was like, basically I can print out the emails from him, but we're kind of stuck again. So I don't know where else to go with this, and it's the vehicles. It's not the stuff in the yards. the refuse and yards, it's the vehicle issue that I haven't been able to figure
How
out.
about a camper that sits in the driveway?
That's one of them that we're having a problem with. You can't prove it's inoperable.
But what about up-to-date licenses?
Well, we can go for that, but I don't know if that's, I don't remember what our ordinance says regarding unlicensed vehicles. I thought it said it had to be current licensed.
Yeah, should be.
Well, I think we still need to push that these people need to get it on a hard surface.
Well,
It needs to
and
be,
and then the other part is the
That is on a hard surface,
yes, it is.
but it is not owned by the residents.
But that's neither here nor there. Resident says it's not theirs, the owner says it's not theirs. So what are you gonna do?
Just ask the resident if he's fine with the city hauling it away.
City can't haul it away. A resident can offer to haul it away, yes.
But is that camper overhanging city property?
Can you tell the residents that that needs to be moved? Because I had one person stop and say there was a small child ran out behind it because it's so close to the road that it causes a danger.
Yep,
it's in the easement.
it's been like that for a long time.
I know it.
And we can't, and then if it was sitting in the middle of the road,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Is
Like I
it
said, a
overhanging
resident
city
could go
property?
and ask them. Maybe a resident could offer to buy it for $100 and have it towed. I don't know.
Right away.
Well, there's a lot of them. There's one right down here on the corner that not only do we have a camper, now we have a pontoon and it's right by a stop
Hmm.
sign and it's infringing right on the street.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with that.
That's on city right away, probably.
To be honest, I'm not going to deal with that stuff right now. There's other things I think that we have to do.
We gotta.
And we also have no
School
mo May,
project.
so,
We don't justify no more.
yeah, well, we can't send letters to no mo May people.
That
We
is
just
so.
let it go until June 1st. So. Let the bees have their homes. I don't know.
Do we have to honor no mow May?
We don't, well. You can send a letter. Not gonna go anywhere. Because they can contest it and then it could turn into illegal, then you're turning it into attorney fees. And from what I gathered, the Institute, we had one of our municipal case studies was on that. And some cities tried to pursue it and they ended up in a legal mess.
Really?
And for 1 month out of the.
And for 1 month, and some of the residents the consensus was it's 1 month. I mean, unless you get a whole lot of rain and they get a lot of growth, it's 1 month, you know?
So in other words, you can have a letter on their doorstep the 1st of June stating you got 5 days to get your lawn mowed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's what needs to be done then because them dandelions, it just a mess
Yep.
that we can't do nothing about.
You can try, but like I said, it's gonna end up, you got postage, then you're gonna get lawyer involved and
I just think we need to stay active. If
so.
things aren't getting cleaned up and starting to look a little better, we just gotta keep on it.
Mhm.
We gotta keep on that school. Something's
If
got,
anybody else would like to call the school and try to get a hold of somebody, I would say go for it because I run into dead ends. I call the school. Last time I called the school, I couldn't even talk to him. I was told he was in a meeting. I called 3 or 4 different times and I got the same response. So I leave a message with the person who answers the phone. And the last time I was put on hold and the person on the phone came back and said, well, he said nothing has changed since he talked to the mayor, but I couldn't talk to him. So,
I haven't talked to him since.
yeah, last year,
Ordeal went down.
yeah. I mean, it's been a long time since he was sitting here,
Yeah.
so. I honestly don't know.
Well, I hope the intent is to keep moving forward.
Mhm.
You know, can we ever send them a letter stating, you know, we haven't seen any activity? Do we need to start a paper trail to say, you know, we were doing this all in good faith as far as the city of Good Thunder and we we hope you honor the deal. You know, if the financing interest rate is what's the hangup, please contact us, you know. Let us,
I can send a letter,
Paper trail might be a good idea.
maybe,
you know,
do we have to ask our attorney what kind of guidance you need to send that letter or?
ask them.
We haven't spent much on lawyer this year, so I mean, you know, we could maybe spend a little.
Make sure it's a.
Legal counsel.
The budget.
That way they
Yeah,
they get it.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Otherwise they'll say, well, we never received a letter.
Mm-hmm.
so anything sitting on Main Street that, you know, alongside of buildings, we can't get much of that done either.
Well, you can. I can guarantee you the one property you're talking about isn't, nothing's gonna happen. It's gonna fall on deaf ears. Because I think all that's, I'm not sure where that is actually.
Well, are we doing our due diligence by just, oh, that's the way it is?
Well, no, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, to be honest, I don't have time right now to send out those letters. I've got 6 weeks of stuff I've got to try to figure out. I mean,
Yeah.
John did a lot of stuff, yes, absolutely. Thank goodness he was here to do that. But that right now is not on my radar. If you want it to be on my radar, then we'll have to figure it out.
Can we have the lawyer send it? Can we send him pictures of it and say, here, what can you do this? Send a letter.
Yeah, I can ask him.
Because, you know, if you're backlogged from not being here, we know that. But maybe we should spend $500 or whatever it may cost to have a legal letter sent and say, hey, you know, these items have been sitting here for a number of years. Do you think it's possibly in the realm of your life to clean it up?
Yeah.
See what you can do with that too. Is this under unfinished business yet, or are we under business? Anybody with new business? We never did go any farther with that ballpark warning fence that's down there. Anybody got any views? What's gonna happen to that? Should it be taken out? Should it want to stay there?
Yeah, wait for Eli, but I think it should be taken out. I mean, I think that's his suggestion, right?
Mhm. Yes,
Take it out?
I think that's his suggestion.
And
That
then
is
have we
it.
heard anything from the Pheasant Forever guys? Did we have something brought up? Didn't we?
We, if I can remember correctly, we had some,
Kennedy did something, didn't
we sent it to Kennedy. I don't remember. I will figure out where that is. Cause we got a letter or something from them.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And then was it
Something about a lease.
that? And then it went to, I'll have to
They're
look.
gonna.
Kennedy wanted to know exactly what they wanted and yeah, so they got that.
Cause we were kind of giving them
Kennedy could have it up by now. I don't know.
quite a lease, 25-year lease or something was
I
it?
don't remember.
Yeah,
They're in to do the repairs of the building or something.
Mhm.
yeah. All right, that's what I had under new business. Anybody else?
Yeah, no, it was my idea there too, was that one.
Miscellaneous? Anything, Amy? Miscellaneous, anything? Anybody? Somebody make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Someone to second it?
It's not committed.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. I oppose, motion carried. Thanks, everybody.